In the realm of marketing at restaurants, does it matter where your food comes from? Well, South Carolina shrimpers say yes. Okay. So a new lawsuit was filed and it takes aim at dozens of Charleston, South Carolina restaurants for shrimp fraud. Okay.
Okay.
I know. Who would have thought? And we don't mean small fraud. We mean like fraud of shrimp. Okay.
Okay.
So basically, the lawsuit brought by the South Carolina Shrimpers Association accuses 40 Charleston area restaurants of breaking state and federal laws for advertising South Carolina seafood, but serving foreign shrimp, which some consumers might find shocking on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. Yeah.
Well, but yeah. So, and it may be the first time a state fraud law has ever been applied to seafood sales on this scale. Now, what the heck are we talking about? So basically, the shrimpers are saying that they are struggling to compete with foreign imports, and it doesn't help that these local restaurants are selling this imported seafood, but advertising it as Carolina caught. Because
Right.
if you go to any restaurant that's on a coast, okay, doesn't matter what coast, whether it's Florida, New York, Maine, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anywhere on a coast, they are always very proudly showing off pictures of, fishermen and da da da. And it always
Yeah.
says, Carolina caught, Maine lobsters. You wouldn't go to Maine and order a lobster. And if you found out it came from Indonesia, you're like, it's okay. I'm in Maine. It's just not what you do.
No, 100%.
Yeah. And so, okay, the whole reason this lawsuit came to be about is because the industry is basically like freaking out over this undercover investigation, okay? Where basically they did this investigation of origin of seafood being sold across 8 states, okay? And basically these areas were threatened with tariffs by the Trump administration and have also cast a spotlight on this unfair trade practices that shrimpers say that they are facing. Okay, because
Okay.
when they tariff the imports, they're paying more for imported shrimp. So you would think that they would start buying local, but they weren't. They were continuing to buy imported shrimp with the tariffs versus buying local. Okay. Now, the defendants are these 40 restaurants, but the true names of the restaurants and their identities is not known. Okay. But the legal action cites that these 40 Charleston area restaurants were identified in a recent undercover testing operation conducted by CD Consulting on behalf of the Southern Shrimp Alliance, okay, which
Okay.
is a 8-state group, which is why they did the investigation in these 8 states, okay, and that of course includes South Carolina.
Right.
So the testing revealed that out of 300 restaurants, okay, so they went to 300 restaurants across 8 warm water shrimp states. So I'm going to go on a limb and say Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina. Oh, I'm at 7.
Maybe
No, I'm
Georgia.
at 6. Georgia,
Yeah.
maybe Virginia. That could be the
Maybe.
8. I'm just
Yeah.
guessing. Texas was probably in there, but so, whatever.
Right.
And so basically, the testing they did in Charleston showed that 40 out of the 44 restaurants, you're talking 90%, falsely advertised where shrimp originated. So we're
Whoa.
not talking about a shrimp fraud. We're talking about a big monster shrimp fraud.
It's
Okay?
basically all of Charleston. Jesus Christ. Wow.
Wish they
Yeah,
would have
that's a
just
big deal.
I wish they would have just said the 4 restaurants that actually sold Carolina shrimp. Okay.
Right.
And it says that, of course, restaurants can charge more for locally caught shrimp in South Carolina, where basically just the annual commercial shrimp landings range between 1.3 to 6.8 million pounds. That's how much
Ooh.
they're pulling out of the waters just in South Carolina. The
God.
SSA also says imported shrimp does not face the same health regulations as U.S. caught shrimp and those that are raised in ponds.
Yeah.
And shrimpers say that the imported shrimp being sold by restaurants is putting them out of business. Now, the SSA says its shrimp origin tests at restaurants have not only shocked consumers, but have spurred local campaigns to not only raise awareness, but as well as give guidance for restaurants and even law changes. Okay. Now, you may be thinking, like, why aren't there already laws about this? Well, Texas, they recently passed a law prohibiting the false marketing of imported shrimp in restaurants.
Yeah.
Mississippi recently changed its law to require disclosure of whether seafood offered for sale at retail and in food service establishments is imported or domestic. Doesn't really say if it was from Mississippi or not, but at least it'd be from the US.
Right.
And a labeling law was defeated in Georgia. So they tried to pass one in Georgia and it didn't make it through.
Oh.
As of right now, there is no labeling law in South Carolina, but the South Carolina Shrimpers Association is urging lawmakers to take up a country of origin menu law during the next legislative session. So basically, if you sell shrimp, you have to say where it comes from.
Right.
Now, of like their, part of the class action lawsuit to prove their point is
Yeah.
that they're actually showing photos of fishing boats and signs such as "Eat Local" and "We Catch 'em" at restaurants, falsely suggesting to customers that the restaurants are affiliated with the local seafood industry and that the product being serviced was caught locally. In fact, the lawsuit says that restaurants knowingly served cheaper shrimp that was farmed or harvested out of state or even imported from foreign markets such as Ecuador, India, Vietnam, and China. And in case you're wondering, where a shrimp grows up will change its basic, not like DNA, but they can actually test like the shell, test the meat,
Yeah.
and based on the different like mineral components and stuff, they can tell where it
Yeah.
grew up. So I feel like this is such a bad scam because it's so easy, and shrimp grown in different locations, it looks different,
Yes. Yeah.
So
100%.
this isn't like we bought cheaper shrimp out of North Carolina and we're selling it in South Carolina. But I will tell you that shrimp caught off the coast of Texas does look a whole lot different than the shrimp that's caught in South Carolina.
Right.
So, and this isn't even like interstate. They're mainly talking about imported shrimp from other countries. Okay, the closest one being Ecuador. Completely different hemisphere, it's going to look a lot different. So it should
Yeah.
be obvious. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But okay. So basically, the lawsuit states that representations defraud consumers and divert sales away from legitimate local shrimpers, which basically violates both the federal and South Carolina Unfair Trade Practices Act. The state law it bans representing a food product as being South Carolina made when it's not. Now,
Yes.
the lawyer thinks that this case may be the first time that a law has been applied specifically to the sale of shrimp at restaurants. And it seems to be precisely what the statute aims to prevent. Now, what they're saying is that this law typically, like if I go set up shop at like a farmer's market and I say that this is local South Carolina honey, but I actually came from another state, that's against the law. Okay.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's usually in a direct consumer type way that I'm telling lies to the consumer directly. Shrimpers don't sell shrimp directly to the customers at restaurants. They sell it to restaurants and then restaurants sell it to the customer. So it's almost like a third party sale. So it's
Right.
kind of like deceit by third party, if you will.
Well, it's
Now, of
false
course,
advertisement.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
100%.
Now, the lawsuit asks for damages to be determined at trial, including punitive damages for disgorgement of fraudulently earned profits. Okay. The lawyer says that the funds, if awarded, would be used by the South Carolina Shrimpers Association for education. Okay. Which I'm guessing they would put giant pictures of real South Carolina shrimp so you know what they look like.
Yeah.
And then the shrimpers are also seeking a temporary restraining order, preventing these companies, these restaurants from selling shrimp from imports. But I do find it interesting that, yes, they want punitive damages, but they're going to use it for education. So it's not like they're gonna like, I'm sure part of it will go to the shrimpers themselves, but you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I feel like this is a very, very legitimate lawsuit that
No, I do too.
you can't like fudge where your shrimp comes from. You know, you can't sell something for a high price because it's local, knowing fair and well you're not buying local shrimp, and then feel like, oops, we got caught. You know, it seems bad. Seems
40
very
out
bad.
of 44 is wild
That's
for one. That's
I mean, and I
that's the
would
thing. So when you go to Charleston, like when we go, we've been to Charleston 2 or 3 times. And when we go to get seafood, right? And the whole point, the entire point is it's on the coast. It's fresh from the boats that you see out in the
never
water. That's
frozen, you know, it's
the
literally
entire
like
point.
caught. Yeah.
If I wanted frozen shrimp from Indonesia, I just go to the damn grocery store and buy a bag of frozen shrimp and come home and cook it in some random ass way. I'm not
But that's
going to a
exactly it, because you can
city.
buy 12 ounces of shrimp for $5 at the grocery store. But if you're in Charleston on the water,
The point is the
you
fresh
pay more
food.
than double for your shrimp because it's local, it's fresh, it was caught down the holler.
There's
They
no
don't use
way.
holler in South Carolina, but still, yeah.
No, at least not in Charleston. But there's no way, literally no way that that food is fresh compared to what you would get off the boats that morning
No.
or even the day before. No possible way are you getting fresh seafood from anywhere other than the
But
waters you're surrounded by.
I think I'm more shocked that so many of the restaurants did this, because they obviously did it thinking that they were going to get away with it, when
Yep.
it's very easy to track this. I mean, all they would have to do is subpoena all their, purchase orders for the last year or so. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, this is so easy to prove that they broke the law.
Well, and that's it. Is like, okay, if you guys have been doing what you've been advertising yourselves as doing, show us your
Nearby.
receipts.
Yeah.
Where are your purchase
Prove it.
orders?
Yeah. Oh, tell us down below. When you go to, a specific place on the coast, do you expect your seafood to be local? Are you willing to pay more for that? And are you a little iffy about buying shrimp right now because it may not be local at all? Let us know your thoughts down below.